Ferris here. Welcome to our Startup with Ferris. This is our live stream, and thank you for tuning in. We're still going through business planning and helping business owners leverage a simplified approach to plan for next year, to assess, to reflect on what happened last year, and plan for the year to come. And before we get started, some logistics. One, if you submitted your questions, we will answer those questions throughout the live stream. A reminder that we have these live streams every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Next week, the holiday week, we will be off, and then we'll be back on Wednesday the 3rd. So join us then. If you still have questions about 2024, you're still not sure how to plan for next year, you're still struggling with maybe vetting the idea, or maybe how do I have my first hire, or how do I get started on getting happier clients, or maybe how do I market my business and get leads? All of that is what we're addressing in these live streams. So, and I'd love to hear from you in terms of your struggles, whether they're big or small, your wins, the challenges that you have. Leave us a comment or go on startupwithferris.com and submit the Ask Ferris form, and we'll be more than happy to schedule a 30-minute session with you, free, no charge, to help out, to listen, to hear you out, listen to the struggles you're going with, and hopefully provide some helpful advice. In my 7 businesses, and after struggling big time in my very first services startup, that was about 20 years ago, I learned that iterating on the go and iterating fast, and that is, for founders, it's okay to jump head first and jump in head first and figure things out on the go. That is totally okay, because this combination of agility, this spirit of exploration, taking advantage of an opening in the market, this is all our competitive edge. This is our competitive advantage as early stage founders, as entrepreneurs. And this will help us against these established competitors, these incumbents. So with that in mind, with jumping in head first, and with iterating on the go, and all the amazing things that they bring, without planning, you're going to make your business journey unnecessarily more difficult. In all honesty, you could join the horrible statistics of businesses who fail, whether they fail right after they start or a few years down the road. My mission is to help entrepreneurs. I don't want you to help entrepreneurs succeed and thrive. I don't want you to be part of these failing statistics. I want to help you adopt this simplified approach that revolves around assessing your current performance, that is reflecting on last year, or maybe you're doing this quarterly, that last quarter or last month, and then planning ahead for the upcoming period. In the previous live stream, we covered 3 important aspects of business planning. We talked about revenue, we talked about risk, and then we talked about strengths and weaknesses. So if you haven't had a chance to watch or listen to that live stream, check out the link in the description below. In that session, we gave very practical examples. We talked about how to assess your plan versus actual, whether it's revenue or number of leads or the marketing events you want to attend. So assessing plan versus actual, how to take better and more calculated risks, and also how to bolster your strength and then overcome your weaknesses. In today's session, I want to show you how to assess, reflect on 3 other critical aspects of the business. One is the market, your audience and leads. Number 2, clients. Now that you have clients, you're delivering, so your service delivery aspect of the business. And 3, the ecosystem around you, your vendors, your contractors, your suppliers and partners, technology partners, product partners. And then next week, we'll talk about, or the week after next, in the next live stream, we'll talk about the last 3 components of business planning, and it will be around the back office, so legal, accounting, HR, operations, then funding your startup, lenders and investors, and third, we'll cover planning for you and your business partners if you happen to have business partners. So that's what we have. Part of our plans. Again, next week we're off, and then the week after, January 3rd, 10 a.m. Wednesday, January 3rd, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, we will be back on this live stream. So don't hesitate to leave us a comment, ask us a question on YouTube or through whatever platform you're using, or go to startupwithfairuz.com and let us know. Let's jump right in. The first aspect of the business we want to cover today is the market, the audience, the leads. In your business plan, I'm assuming that you made certain assumptions about the market, about the competition, your target audience, how you want to package and sell the service, and about pricing. And one key principle that is fundamental to businesses is for you as a business owner to have a clearly defined target audience. That means that segment of the population that is most likely to be interested in what you offer, or they need what you have. Initially, I'd argue that it is very important to niche more. The more you niche, the better. And part of this effort is once you have a smaller or a more defined, better defined target audience, you'll be able to connect with them in a more effective manner. You'd be in a better position to really understand who those buyers are, what their motivations, their desires, their pain points, and what makes them tick. Otherwise, if you haven't honed in on a niche, know that selling to everyone is selling to none. So in the marketing jargon, when we speak about target audiences, you'll hear about fancy words like demographics and psychographics. And if any of this is new to you, I definitely recommend you check out our playlist, both on business planning and on marketing, so you can get acquainted with these concepts. But you can, for now, I'll cover, I think, enough examples so to get the point across. So here's some ways for you to think about your business. And it applies to those who haven't started yet, and also those who've started and they're struggling, because again, part of the struggle could be that you haven't honed in on your target audience. So for example, ask yourself, am I selling to consumers, business to consumer, B2C, or am I selling to other businesses, B2B? Very, very high level question, but it's important. Are you focused on a geography? Or maybe you sell online and geography is not an issue for you. Are you focused on a specific vertical? Let's say in the case of B2B, maybe a specific company size, maybe your processes or maybe your experience is not in delivering services to the enterprise, so you're focused on small and mid-sized businesses. Or maybe another way to look at it, maybe you focus on a certain income level or in certain budget levels. So part of the business review, this phase we're in terms of reviewing, assessing last year's performance, is to visit or to revisit the list of demographics and psychographics. And I believe we have a slide on this. Yeah, we have it here on screen. You'll see things like age, race, gender, location, income level, education level, marital status. And then that's on the demographic side of things. And then on the psychographics, the values, the interests, the attitudes, the lifestyle, the needs, the desires, the pain points. So having a better understanding of your audience with these elements in mind, is really important. And that's why I said earlier, the more early on, the more you niche down, the easier for you is to be able to understand and assess and study and research these demographics and these psychographics. So let's apply these to examples from consulting, if you have a consulting business, and also from services if you're not in consulting, but you provide professional services. The approach applies here to both, but I'll give you specific examples. So for instance, if you're in consulting, And let's say you have 10 years of experience in regulatory compliance. Basically, you're making sure businesses are not getting in trouble with the authorities. That's going to be most likely a B2B setting. And let's say you have background in healthcare. So your vertical would be, so you're selling to businesses, B2B, and then your vertical will be healthcare. So then you can start asking more specific questions. Are you ready to offer your services to large hospitals, or is it small clinics for dentists or physicians, for example, or small laboratory labs? Are you offering this service, and do you have the certifications or the proper, regulatory documentation or certifications to offer this locally, maybe at the state level or maybe nationwide? So those questions are important so that you can hone in and you can focus on marketing channels to that audience. Or let's say if you're not in consulting, but you're in services, maybe you want to grow an event planning services business, or maybe you have a tutoring service business. So that's more B2C, business to consumer. Maybe you have a great local network, and you can focus on your locality. You don't have to worry about anything outside of your locality. So going through these questions and that screenshot that we had where we showed the different demographics and psychographics, that's really important. So assess what you've done last year in light of what we just covered. So I'm hoping that you've gone through this exercise or some level of thinking of planning when you put together your business plan. But if you didn't, this is the perfect time to reflect. So let's ask these questions. Were your assumptions about the market correct? Was the market in need of my services? For example, market conditions change, right? No one can predict what's going to happen next quarter or next year. You have a lot of gurus, a lot of pundits out there projecting it'll be a recession. No, it'll be the best time to sell. It'll be the best time to buy. It'll be the best time to do this or that or the other. You want to be prepared. So if the market conditions change, then you have to do something different for your business. So for example, let's say you want to offer, you're great in cooking and you have a personal chef services, and there's a recession looming, and typically in a recession, people are spending less on discretionary services. So the market conditions are changing. So maybe you move from this personal chef services to a service to catering. Businesses are still having meetings and gatherings, and they looking for caterers. So again, look at the market conditions and see if you need to do something different. The other question to ask is the market saturated? You can search online. You can see who else is offering your services. You can also learn from leads you speak with and the customers that you have. Maybe the market is saturated, but a lot of the clients, a lot of the leads you speak with, they're not happy with their current provider. Maybe it's a cutthroat market and everybody is so focused on selling at the cheapest price they can, so service is lacking. So if that's what's going on in the marketplace, that could be your opportunity. You can come in and don't compete on price, but if leads and clients are complaining about the level of service, you can compete on responsiveness, on the quality of the service. So as a small business owner, you don't have a lot of years of experience, but so maybe you're asking yourself, do I have enough of an edge? Again, you don't have 10 years of experience in a business, but you have experience in the area that you're building the services company for or this consulting company for. So that subject matter expertise is there. Otherwise, I'm not sure why you would start a consulting company or a services company. Maybe your business partner might have that, and you're great at marketing, so you're joined together. But someone in your business should have this subject matter expertise. So are you, when you're assessing, when you're reflecting, did I differentiate myself enough? Let me make sure that the screen is working well. Yeah. Can I differentiate myself enough? Did I differentiate myself enough? Again, it could be agility, it could be your premium high touch service, it could be your pricing. Find out what is unique about you, and you want to differentiate around that. Another question you can ask is my price too high? Is it too low? And as we said earlier in that example about regulatory requirements, are there new requirements in my vertical that maybe I'm not aware of, and now starting next year I have to comply with A, B, and C? So if there are new requirements, new certifications, maybe those could be threats because you can't sell without those certifications. At the same time, they could be an opportunity because now you can maybe outpace your competition, get those certifications, meet those requirements, and then you can offer the service ahead of your competition. So all of these are questions for you to think about. And then last but not least, before we go into preparing for next year, all these questions, reflect on them as you're taking a walk, around the block, going on a hike, whatever you do while you're driving to pick up someone. Think about those questions, reflect on what happened last year, and ask yourself, what are some market opportunities that you were not aware of when you put together your business plan? I read an article recently in the Wall Street Journal a few months ago, actually, that there's a shortage in nursing homes and resources for elderly care. Now, combine that with the giant demographic bubble of 20 million Americans entering their 80s over the next decade. So there's a shortage of healthcare services, and specifically home care and elderly care. And then more of us are getting older and they need that care. So it doesn't take a genius. There's an opportunity there. So maybe you don't have any experience in that vertical. You find someone who has, and maybe you and he, or you and she can join together and form a partnership and start this business. So look in your network and see who has experience in that space, and you can join hands and start a business. So next is to go over, with that assessment, with those questions, with those reflections, let's prepare for next year. But before we do that, we did get a question over on YouTube from Ken. Let me read it off. So this is about small business navigating a recession. This is good on Ken's part, being proactive in case there's a recession. And what do you think about a company surrounding, that does logistics, and it's a 3% company? And to give you a little bit of background, we answered Ken's first question in the last live stream, where he said, what advice do you have for a small business navigating a recession? So I shared some thoughts on, I'm not an economist, but from my reading and from a few years of experience, some industries are going to be more heavily impacted by a recession than others. Luxury goods, typically leisure, travel, people are not spending as much money on these. But at the same time, other industries could be thriving, staple, essential goods, training, education, others. So that's just, those were some thoughts I talked about around dealing with the recession in general, and also, foundational business concept like cash flow management, maybe diversifying your revenue streams and negotiating better terms. Those are all, I think, solid practices for any business, but especially if a recession is looming, being stronger in all these areas will help you navigate a recession and come out of it stronger. But the question is, what do I do for a company surrounding logistics for a 3%, basically a company with 3 people? In a recession for logistics, the demand might not be there. If you're getting, 10 leads a month, you might be getting 5 now. I don't know. It depends again on how bad, and it's also in your vertical. The competition might be more fierce in a recession because there's less demand, but that you can't control. You can't control if there's less demand or if the competition is fierce. What you control is your ability to be more responsive, your ability and your team's ability, especially there's only 3 of you, to provide excellent customer care. That flexibility and agility that a 3-person company offers can't is not there for larger organizations. So you can compete on these attributes, while these other companies, the larger companies, they can't move as fast as you can, and they can't be as flexible as you are. So those are some thoughts on navigating a recession, and also if you're a 3-person company in logistics. I hope Ken, you find this useful. And again, thank you for engaging us and asking questions and providing a lot more context, because a lot of times I get these very high level questions, and there's just so many ways to answer them, and I typically say it depends. A typical consulting answer, not very useful at times. So thank you again, Ken, for being for watching, following us and asking those questions. Before again we move on to the preparing for next year, just a reminder that we have this Ask Faris form on our website, startupwithfaris.com. And for those of you who are listening, it's Faris spelled as Feras, my first name. You can go on the website and submit a form with your questions. I have 2 slots a week where I dedicate those to founders on a first come, first served basis. No gimmicks. We're not trying to sell you anything. A whole lot of people help me to build and grow and sell and do well in business. And this is part of my way of saying thank you to the tens of people who helped me throughout my career. So if you have a question, you're stuck in your 2024 planning, you're not sure what to do, you're not sure how to vet the idea, you're working with family and their issues, I mean, you name it, let me know, schedule a session, happy to spend time and share my recommendations, my advice, and then hopefully you'll do the same. You'll help others as you become more successful. So moving back to preparation under this pillar of the market, the audience, and leads. As you prepare for next year, especially if you're still finding your way in the marketplace, I mean, you're learning more about your audience, your competition, but keep this principle front and center. This one principle I learned many years ago that's going to help you stand out among your competitors. And that is, it's a quote. It's an amazing quote by Peter Drucker, one of the most famous management consultants. He said, the only sustainable competitive advantage is to learn faster than the competition. So the only sustainable competitive advantage for you as a business owner or as a company is to learn faster than the competition. And I would add something to it, and that is because some of us, they're obsessed with learning, watching YouTube, listening to podcasts, reading the latest and all that, which is great. I would say learning and applying that learning, turning what you learn into part of your process. So let's just, we'll talk about this maybe in a different live stream, but learning faster and applying what you learn is going to be key to differentiate you as a business owner, as a consultant, as a service provider. So you can learn more, and you should learn more about, let's say there's a product that you support. So learning more of the product, the ins and outs of that product, learning more about your client's industry, maybe how to automate, how to include AI in your workflow, how to incorporate tech in your process so you're more efficient. So those are things to think about as you're planning for next year. What is it that I can learn and implement so I can be more effective and more efficient? Other questions you can think about as you're preparing. How do I distinguish myself in the crowd next year? I remember, give you a story here. I remember in one of our businesses, there was a trend, and this is early on, 15 plus years ago. This is when offshoring, especially around technology and web design, this is when it was a thing. I would say when we went and spoke with clients, and when we provided a proposal, they were coming back with counter offers that were like at 25% the cost. So if let's say our project was, we quoted $10,000, they said, hey, we have a quote for $2,500. I mean, there's no way that we could deliver our services at the time for a quarter the cost. So we learned that there was this trend of offshoring, people working with folks overseas, where it's more economical for them to offer, to buy from overseas suppliers. So we were losing deals left and right, and we didn't have an edge in terms of pricing. So we had to work around this situation. And what we did is we focused on things that are very specific, unique to us, and things that this set of competitors couldn't compete with. So we focused on responsiveness, on in the time zone where the customer is. We focused on reliability and bundled in specific services that is harder to do offshore. For example, we said we would meet with the chief marketing officer or with the head of marketing, or depending on the company size, or with the business owner, and provide a monthly executive review of the performance of the services we've done, and also trends in the market. So that took a bit more time from us to deliver that service. And it's something that we did not envision to offer, but this is how we differentiated, and it worked. Not with every client. Those who are very, very price sensitive, they just ended up going with offshore providers. But then those who value this premium way or premium level of service, they really appreciated what we offered, and they didn't mind the price. They, of course, negotiated, but we're still in that $10,000, $9,000, range, not in the $2,500 range. Again, this is a big disclaimer here. This is not to say that offshoring is not reliable, or folks who deliver services, abroad, they're not responsive, or they offer bad quality. Not saying any of this. Things have evolved over the last 15, 20 years. And I do have amazing business partners and businesses overseas. And we supported in my last job, in my last company, and actually in one of the ventures that I'm involved in today, we have actually an international team in Europe, in the Middle East, in India, all supporting Fortune 500 clients. So no issue whatsoever. I'm just giving you an example of a point in time 15, 20 years ago when we faced that situation and we're able to navigate around it. So look at your own setup today, and apply that to your situation. Don't misquote me on this. Now, moving on to other questions as you're preparing, should you change your price? Pricing needs several live streams. Maybe we'll do a mini course on pricing. But for now, I would say solely competing on price is very risky. And price wars with competition could start a race to the bottom. No one wins. So my recommendation is differentiate on other factors, on other attributes: quality, responsiveness, as we said, time to deliver, that in-touch premium service, the certification, something unique to you and your company. Now, with that in mind, initially, it might be okay to be price sensitive, to work with those who are price sensitive, to maybe even not make a profit on the first few projects, because you want to get the experience of selling and delivering. You want to also get the logos. You want to get these referenceable clients, clients who would be a reference for you when a lead asks you for a reference. But in my recommendation is not to set up a business to compete on price in the long run, unless your entire business model is based on efficiencies and on volume, and then that competing on price would be your unique attribute. So not from the services space, but if you go to Costco and you go to Whole Foods, it's a different experience, different pricing. You're not expecting the level of attention and service at Costco. I'm not saying service at Costco is bad. It's just they're competing on price and volume. Whole Foods is more customized, more different setting altogether. So keep that in mind. Another question to also look into, another area as you're preparing for next year, is regulatory changes. Sometimes when there are compliance issues or some new changes in an industry or in a sector, it brings fear and uncertainty to many business owners, rightfully so. At the same time, this uncertainty and fear is applying. It applies across the entire industry, the entire sector. So the people who buy from you have the same level and maybe more, fear and uncertainty. So you can get ahead of the curve. You can research what's required. You can research what certifications you have to have. You can, if there's some new things you have to do, experiment with these new tools or processes. So this way you can, part of your plan is to show that you already have experience in this new thing because you've experimented with it. Maybe you offered it for free to a few customers. So now you can have a case study you can talk about, or someone who can tell their story, their success story. So you can provide authority content that will give your clients that peace of mind. So think about that. Also, on the sales front, ask yourself a question. Can I pitch better? Do I need a better pitch? How can I get past the gatekeepers? So those are questions to ask. Again, we talked about certifications. Do I need more certifications? Maybe how do I learn faster than the competition? And then look at trends and be it technological or otherwise, and you want to be ahead of the curve. And with especially with new things, new services to offer, new revenue streams, new trends. I mean, not everything is going to be a huge wave or a huge revenue stream. So sometimes you end up experimenting. This is the price of being, I guess they call this first mover advantage, is you're there first and people recognize you and give you business. But part of the price of being a first mover, you get a couple of scars here and there, and you have to put more time because you're exploring new territory. So as it relates to planning for next year, what are some of the trends that are there in general and also in your sector? So, for example, if you're offering technical tutoring services, is AI going to impact your offer? People go and prompt ChatGPT and get some code right now, right? So how do you leverage that to help you maybe help people use AI better? That's an example. Or maybe supplement what is it that they're going through. Maybe you offer writing services or video editing services or social media marketing services. I mean, some aspects of these sectors are already impacted by AI. So how can you leverage maybe some offer a lot of AI assisted services instead of fighting AI and say it's doom and gloom? It might be, but that's going to be bigger and larger than the rest of us and all of us. So think about it that way. I think your domain expertise and critical thinking and what you know about the industry and dealing with people and what you know about your niche, they can help you maybe better tailor. If you're using AI, for example, you can be an amazing prompter. There's a prompt engineering is a thing now. But in your services business and writing and video editing, you can find ways to leverage AI and make it part of your offering. So think about this in your specific sector, in your specific set of services, and see how you can leverage trend, not just AI. There are trends around sustainability, of course, automation. New tech always something to look for, because you could optimize. You can make your services and your delivery much more efficient using tech. So we'll talk about that later, how to incorporate tech into your business. But that was on reflecting, assessing last year or the last period, and then preparing for next year. So let's see if we have questions. All right, so we have this question. How do I raise prices with clients? How do I raise prices with clients? Just increase them 10% every year. Simple answer. Uh, we should have a dedicated session on pricing for sure. But I would say, to give you a quick answer today, as you gain more experience as a new business owner, as you get more experience, your the delivery and what you offer, the value you offer, is increasing as well. So with that, I believe it in my mind, in the back of my mind, it justifies you just giving you that confidence that yes, I can sell my services at a higher price. So the different ways of doing it, potentially you can again let your clients know that we add more the service what we used to offer. We've included a couple more things in it, and it is now 20% more. Now again, you have to make sure you don't want to add more things that will take more time and efforts from you. So you add something that takes less time from you, but it is of great value to the client. So that would be one example where you can just add something that is of perceived value to the customer that doesn't take you a lot of time to implement, and then you can increase your price. That's just one example. Another example would be just, hey, economic circumstances are changing around us, and we want to take care of our customers and be able to deliver the right service, and we want to take care of our employees and contractors. So we are raising our prices by 10%. I've seen that happen. There's always a risk when you increase prices. There's a risk of losing some clients. But if you raise your prices by 10%, if your revenue increases by 10% and you lose some clients who contributed to that 10%, then you actually have less clients and you're making the same kind of money. So actually it's less overhead, less, you'll have more time. So it has to be done thoroughly and thoughtfully. But I just gave you a couple ideas, and we'll definitely dedicate some time, either a video or live stream on pricing, and go over some more nuance. Let's see if we have, I think we have another question here. Do I need certifications to do regulatory consulting? That's where it depends. Standard answer here comes handy. It's going to depend on your industry for sure. I know, for example, old days, when ISO 9000 certification was a thing, people will have to be certified to offer that service, and then they would go uncertified companies. So now, ISO is still there if you're in manufacturing or in different verticals. ISO certification is important. So you have people, certifiers, who come and actually examine your processes and examine your systems, and then we'll give you an audit, a report card, and they'll identify, green, orange, yellow, green, orange, red, what passed, what didn't, what needs immediate attention. So typically, you would need to get as a professional who wants to provide the regulatory consulting. You have to check with the authority that is the agency, the government agency, or maybe it's an independent party, and look at their requirements and what they require you to do to be certified. Typically, there's some sort of courses you have to take or certifications you have to acquire. Yep. All right. Good question. I think that's it for now. So we covered the first component of for today's live stream about the market, the audience, and leads. So now let's move in. You've sold. You have clients. You're now delivering these services. So that's great. Congrats. Now, if in the case you haven't started a business, so obviously you haven't delivered a service yet because you're still planning to start a business, I still recommend for you to continue to listen and watch, because what I'm about to cover is important for your planning to deliver the service with quality, to make sure that you get happy clients who will buy from you and who will be your evangelists in the future as well. So if you're not started the business yet, still take notes about service delivery and about dealing with clients. So when it comes to clients and delivery, I mean, basically, this is where the rubber hits the road. Uh, you impressed clients enough to buy from you. Now you got to deliver on what you promised. Easier said than done, but we've all done it. Now, if you're a founder and if you're busy, you've been busy selling, marketing, and now you have to deliver. So some of that time that you had to sell and market, you got to put it into delivery. So the one thing you want to be disciplined about is that, and especially initially, the first few clients, or if you're struggling with client satisfaction, is you want to make it really important for your business, especially in consulting and services, to bend over backward for the customers and make the clients happy. And don't let shiny objects and unvetted ideas distract you. Watch out for these new initiatives and new sales channels and new revenue streams. I mean, all this exploration, there's time for it, but at times it could negatively impact your availability and your time to deliver and to deliver your service and to delight your clients. So as you start to have clients and more clients, your aim is to make sure you deliver on what you promised. Your aim is to have your clients be your evangelists, so they are referenceable in the future. A lot of times, especially for small businesses, you go and meet someone, you impress them, but they're still skeptical, or just part of their checklist. Let me speak with a reference. Let me speak with someone that you have done work for. So if you have your first 3, 4, 5 clients are not happy with you, you're not going to win future business. So I'm maybe overemphasizing, but it's important to have delighted customers, especially always, but especially initially. And one thing I think to keep in mind is this quote I remember from Bill Gates. He said, "Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning." So, I mean, unhappy customers, and sometimes they could be unreasonable. They take a lot of attention, a lot of resources, but they also identify gaps in your product, in your service, in the way you're delivering the service, in the way you do customer support, and maybe in your documentation. So these unhappy customers and the time you spend to make them happy and delight them and just deliver, on your contract, that time you spend is all. Don't just be upset about it and cussing at the customers, after you hang up the phone. Think of it as a learning experience. Maybe you set the wrong expectations in the contract, and maybe that's the root cause of this unhappiness. So learn from this experience and turn these, everything we're going to go through now is about questions you ask yourself about the delivery, and think about it. If I can accomplish this and I can make the most unhappy customer happy, then everybody else will be delighted. So reflect on these questions. As I said, what were the clients like? And if you had, like, let's say 20 clients, maybe segment them in happy, unhappy, so, and see what led to these situations. Because after you sell, and after that initial kickoff call, everybody's happy. The honeymoon is over. The customer might be very demanding. As I said, the contract might not have been clear. There might be misalignment on timeframes, on expectations, on dependencies, who's doing what, when. So make sure you ask these questions about every contract you had. Example in our personal chef example earlier. Maybe you thought the clients were providing all the ingredients, and then you show up and oops, they expected you to do that. I'm just an example here, but it happens. In services and consulting companies, many problems arise when roles and responsibilities and dependencies are not clear. Another thing that you can ask is, what challenges did I go through, did I get during delivery? For example, if you have a client who, and I remember I had this experience with one of our clients, where we met them, and they're happy. They had two locations, and one here in South Bay in the Bay Area, one in San Francisco, about an hour and 15 minutes from where our office used to be at. And they loved us, and they bought from us. And then once we wanted to have the kickoff meeting, and this is before Zoom and before any of this, we figured we can just take a lot of that information and the intake, for our initial work all over the phone. And then we had bi-weekly meetings. They expected those meetings to be in person. And we thought we can just do it over the phone. So to keep the client happy, I ended up having to go to San Francisco. And that's during traffic. You're talking about 2 hours at times. So basically, my day was gone for this one meeting that I could just do on a phone over 30, 45 minutes. In hindsight, that should have been clear in the contract. We would meet with you once in person, like once a quarter. So again, a very small detail, but it cost me a day or half a day at least in wasted time. I could have charged more if they insisted on in person, no problem, right? So think about it. And one time we ran late in the meeting, I ended up getting a parking ticket. So this is all because they insisted on offering me something to eat, and oh my God, I couldn't say no, and ended up with a parking ticket and wasted half a day. So that's what happened. So expectations in the contract, and be clear. And you'll learn this over time. It's some of the stuff you just have to do and make those mistakes, and then you include those in your contract in the future, so you avoid those mistakes. Now, in terms of other questions to ask, what feedback did I get on the delivery? And then what did I do? How did I manage difficult clients? Did I just suck it up? Maybe that's the way to do it initially, especially if you're struggling with sales and revenue and you have payroll or you're planning on hiring. So suck it up initially. It is what it is. The customer is always right, although you don't believe in it. I don't believe in it all the time. The customer is right most of the time. But suck it up initially, and then later you can be more choosy. For example, I remember a client of ours early on. We had like one more thing to do for them, and it was dependent. They had to provide us with some content to produce this marketing asset, and they held on that last payment, and our terms were 50% upfront, 50% when we're done. They held on that payment for weeks, and we were done. There was this one last thing to do, and they one time called. This is how obnoxious they were. They want us to fix their fax machine. Like, my friend, I'm just because I used to do web design services and websites. They thought I'm technical, dude. I don't know anything about fax machines. I ended up having an intern, a friend of my younger friend who was still in high school, and he was pretty technical. Paid him a couple of, I don't know, $20 an hour. He went and fixed that fax machine, and then we got paid eventually. So these things happen. That's bending over backward for this client. So this client was a pain to work with, but we took care of them. They were happy. They ended up sending us 2 or 3 leads, each worth twice the contract value of working with them. So we talked about also another question. We talked about referenceable clients. Last question to ask here in terms of reflecting on last year, before we talk about preparing and planning for next year, is about clients. Did we lose some? Did we retain all of our clients? And more importantly, or as importantly, did we grow the contract with some of those clients? The initial contract was $10,000, and then we got a retainer, maybe $1,000 a month. So ask all these questions and reflect on last year or the last period as you prepare to plan for next period. And for those of you who are just joining, we are talking today about 3 aspects of the business when it comes to planning. One is we covered the market, leads, and your audience. The second aspect is about clients and delivery, your service delivery. And then next we'll talk about the third component of today's session, and then we'll have a follow-up live stream 2 weeks from now about HR, back office, insurance, accounting, all that good stuff, and about also investors and lenders to fund your business. And then we'll talk about also you as an entrepreneur and your business partners. So those will be the 3 topics for the next live stream 2 weeks from now. But for today, again, we just finished how to prepare, how to reflect, assess last year when it comes to services and delivery. And now we're going into preparing for next year. And then after I finish this, we'll cover the stakeholders, the ecosystems around you, your contractors, your vendors, your suppliers. All right. So the questions we addressed above about the clients and delivery and what you heard from clients and the challenges, I think they'll give you a pretty clear picture on what you're doing well and what needs improvement. Now, when it comes to addressing the issues that the clients have raised, maybe your customer support skills, maybe identifying like how to grow and scale. Because one thing, I mean, for this channel, we're focused on a lot of what we cover helps solopreneurs, but our main focus is on helping those who want to grow their businesses to 7 or 8 figures, right? So part of that growth and supporting that growth in every aspect of the business, and especially in delivery here, is setting up your business with systems and processes so you can scale. See, without systems and processes, let me tell you, no matter how smart you are, no matter how hardworking you are, you're not going to scale. So part of it is to come up with templates and checklists so that you can have a repeatable process. So if you had an issue, let's say you out of the 7 out of the 10 clients you had, 7 deliveries, and 7 deliveries you missed a key component of the deliverable. Maybe it was something simple. Maybe you missed a summary report at the end of the service on what your findings and the recommendations going forward. So you missing that small but key component of the delivery made some clients unhappy. So if you have a checklist in place where you review at the beginning of the project, throughout the project, and at the end, that will help you avoid that mistake. That would maybe it cost you 2 happy clients. So a checklist to establish for every project will be helpful. So look at, for example, things that you can provide. Clients' obligations. You can look, for example, at clients, the first kickoff, project kickoff meeting. What should I cover in that kickoff meeting? Have a checklist for post-project follow-ups. You promise certain things for the client, and you want to do that. Look at a template for your major project milestones, and also for the timeline for the project. Now, all these templates, you obviously should tweak and refine and customize for every engagement, but having these templates is going to be key for your scale. I believe we have an asset here that I want to show you, and we'll link it in the description. It's about these, maybe we can expand this a little bit, but basically for every aspect of the business, whether it's researching, vetting the idea, or whether when it comes to marketing, when it comes to sales, when it comes to delivery, having a checklist, a template for every aspect of the business is, I would say, it's a prerequisite, is foundational for you to establish repeatable processes where you are not the one doing all the work. Eventually, or soon after you start to sell and make some profit and have some revenue, and you've proven the idea, you want to scale that business, you want to grow that business. So those checklists. So think of this asset here we have as your checklist for your checklists. And over later in the year, we will offer specific templates, sample templates for each of these areas. But think of this as your checklist for the checklist. And I remember my business partner, Eric, he's big on checklist, of course. And he and I read this book. I think it was called The Checklist Manifesto. It saves lives. Trust me, surgeons used it, and the data that shows it saves lives. So it will save your business. All right. Another questions to ask. Actually, before we go back to the questions. One thing to also, in terms of leveraging technology, I mean, you can have these checklists in a Google Sheet, and that's totally fine. You can also, if you're using a task management software, project management software, Basecamp, Asana, any of these, I think they're great for these templates because once you have a new client, you can make a copy of that template, and then there you have it. You can just use it for that client. And one pro tip here is that after every project, sit down. Don't wait till the end of the quarter or the end of the year. Sit down and see what improvements do I want to make to this template and to this checklist so it's better, going forward. So that's really, it's going to help you scale better and be more effective. So other questions to ask as part of preparing for next year with these clients, think about, happy clients. Can I get a case study out of them? Can I get a review? Can I get a quote or a testimonial? That's important because that will help you in your marketing efforts. So add that to your checklist. Also, as you're preparing for next year, think about upselling, cross-selling, recurring revenue opportunities. I remember those are always like, because you worked with a client for a couple of months, for 3 months, you delivered the service, you got to know more about their business, you got to know more about their environment. If you connected maybe with one of the VPs or the owner, the CEO, they probably, as you became their trusted advisor, they probably open up with you about other issues they're having. So there might be other opportunities for you with these clients on offering recurring services. And we're working on some videos and articles for January, for next month, on increasing revenue for consulting and services companies. So watch out for that, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on when we release these videos. But an example here in terms of assessing what happened last year and preparing for the future is one of our clients. I remember early on, they were very skeptical about online services, online marketing. And it was the early ages, the dawn of online marketing. But we were introduced through a friend, mutual friend, and so the trust was there. But they were very skeptical. The business owner was very skeptical. They've done things the old-fashioned way at the time, and they would just call customers and cold call and whatnot. And they started with us with a very small amount. I think it was like $300 or $400 that very first project. And they assigned some money, like $500 for paid media, for ads money. I'm telling you, once they got a few leads, they got the first lead, they said, okay, maybe that's luck or whatever. But once they start to get a few leads from this initial engagement, I got a call from the business owner, and he said, let's meet. How do we scale this? And they were a client with us for a number of years. And we went from $200-$300 a month, or I forgot, $300 initially, I think, to $5,000 to $6,000 a month type retainer. So you're talking about $60,000, $72,000 a year of revenue from this client who started with a very small budget. So as you're assessing, last year, as you're preparing for next year, think deeper about these relationships you have with your clients, and see if you can find recurring revenue opportunities, or maybe like a phase 2 of the project that you've implemented. And then I think in terms of the last question to ask here, about contracts in these issues that you experienced and the things that came up with your clients, was there something that maybe you could have added to the contract that would have made this issue, that would not have caused this issue? Maybe the client obligations, they're more clearly defined in your next version of the contract. Maybe your project milestones could be better defined, with maybe some explicitly stating the dependencies on the client. So if you're late because they're late, they don't point the finger at you. They might still do that, but at least you have something to refer to now. Maybe the payment terms were not very favorable, in your contracts, your people were paying you like 60 days from when you deliver, like net 60. Maybe you want to negotiate down, or change that to net 30 or net 15, or maybe get 50. Instead of, one pro tip here, instead of for consulting and services business, instead of maybe waiting to get paid at the very end, maybe do 50% upfront, 25% halfway through, and 25% at the end. So cash is king. Cash flow is very important. So those are some tips on, and we'll have videos on this in the future. But again, look at examine your contracts, and look at all the issues that came up with around delivery and client satisfaction, and make sure you improve your contract template for next year to account for these various aspects. Cool. I think, yeah, and the assets is linked in the description of the YouTube live stream, and also we have it available. I think, yeah, we have a message about this asset. So yeah, that master checklist is available for you to see it. We have a couple of questions here that came in. Should I offer my clients a discount for referring leads? Should I offer my clients a discount for referring leads? Short answer is yes. Offer something. It doesn't have to be a discount, because it could, especially if it's early on in the relationship, it could be awkward. But I wouldn't go and say, hey, bring me leads and I'll give you a discount. I wouldn't say it that way. Of course, you wanna make sure. I would say a prerequisite to this is make sure that you've delighted the customer. Remember what we said earlier about, you want your clients to be your evangelists. Not every one of them is going to be like that, but some are, and some will be. So, excuse me. So think about ways. First make sure that they're very happy with what you offer, and make sure they value you as a trusted advisor. And once you've done that, you can reciprocate in so many different ways. Some clients could be very, they would appreciate a discount. Others might you maybe take them out to lunch or a nice dinner, or maybe you offer some service to them, or something that of value to them. So that's really important. And excuse me for a second. Sorry about that. So that would be my recommendation. Definitely reciprocate. But first, make sure they're happy. Make sure you're a trusted advisor. They really liked what you have, and then think of ways. I wouldn't do sort of quick per probe, but I would make sure maybe when you are evaluating the relationship, maybe when you renew the contract, you can say, hey, you've been very kind enough. You've sent us a lot of leads, so I'm going to give you a discount, or I'm not going to increase my pricing. Just so that I would definitely reciprocate in one way or another. All right, good question. How often should I communicate with my clients? Often enough so that they're happy with you and you're getting what you need from them. So if, let's say, a project is a 3-month project, that initial thing you sold, definitely a whole lot of communication, a whole lot of meetings or Zoom calls or phone calls initially, because during sales, typically there's a lot of back and forth. You're negotiating, you're doing a demo, you're visiting, you're speaking with different stakeholders. So there's a lot of momentum building up before the sale takes place. And once it takes place, it's sort of, you don't want things to die down. So right after you close the deal, again, one of the points on the checklist is to have a initial project kickoff meeting. So right after you close the deal, email the client, say, thank you so much. We love working with you. Here's what to expect next. And like, we'll meet in a couple of days, and I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I want to come in and talk to other stakeholders, whatever the case might be. So definitely a lot of communication up front, and then as needed to make sure you are getting what you need from the client, and also they're seeing you, because out of what's the saying? Out of sight, out of mind. So if you're not there and they just issued you that $10,000 check, it might get a bit awkward. Now it gets also very tricky when you're a business owner, small business owner. You have a lot of things going on, and you don't know when these deals close. So you might have planned on going to a conference that's out of state, and like the deal closes 2 days before that conference. So now you can't meet with the client for a week. So again, things happen, things come up. I think reasonable people would understand. And again, you can hint to a lot of these, like in the contract, like, hey, if we don't close this deal in a couple of days, then I'm going to be out for a week. So I think that open communication with the client and setting expectations on communication is important. Eventually, I think once you have 5, 6, 7 projects under your belt, I think you'll know what makes sense in terms of communication, and you can actually commit to that in the contract. You can say, we will have a kickoff meeting within 3 business days. We will have a follow-up meeting in a week, and then we'll have weekly calls. So you can be very specific. But initially, I would say you're going to be learning like what's the right mix, and then again, I would definitely make it part of that expectation setting in the contract early on. All right. We're good with that. I don't think we have any questions on this. So we are going to move on to the last third of this live stream, and that is about the ecosystem that you operate in. You don't operate in a vacuum. You have obviously leads and clients, but there are other stakeholders, there are other members of this ecosystem that support you. You have vendors, you have contractors you hire, you have suppliers, and you have also partners, not business partners. We'll talk about that next time, but more technology partners or product partners. So no matter, I think, what stage of the business you're in, you are going to be relying on others to support you. It could be something sort of back office. It could be just a bookkeeper, or maybe someone who's helping you with as an office manager. So that's one thing. It could be a contractor that you hire to build your website. It could be a supplier that provides you with tools and systems to deliver your own service. It could be also a product or a technology partner around their product. You are delivering strategy, implementation, maintenance, support. So a lot of companies, small or large, a lot of people around you are there to support your business. So you want to make sure that you maintain an excellent relationship with all of them. Your business relies on these partners, these stakeholders, and if you don't take care of them, you don't treat them well, it's going to show in the way they deal with you and the way they support you. So that's one thing. The other thing is, as they get to know you and as they're impressed by what you're doing, they could be a great source of leads for you. So keep that in mind. So as you're reflecting on last year, remember one thing. Remember that you are the brand. And what you do and how you deal with people reflect on you and on your business. So just like with clients, be responsive, with partners, with vendors, with suppliers. Be responsive, be respectful, be grateful, be clear on expectations, and always have an open line of communication and a communication channel with them. Now, as you build and grow your business, and this is a pro tip in my mind. I learned it the hard way. But as you build and grow your business, your reputation will precede you. People will notice and remember. Just keep that in mind. So, are you easy or difficult to work with? Are you fair? Are you objective? Do you pay on time? Do you reciprocate? You're dealing with people. You're not dealing with objects. You're not dealing with robots. So I would say live by, or at least aim to live by, this quote from Warren Buffett. Your reputation is like fine china. It's very expensive to acquire, and it's easy to break, or it's very hard to repair. So your reputation is very important in your, and we live in a small world. Like I remember I had a boss who became a client. I had a client who became a boss. I had a supplier who became a client. I had a client who became a supplier. So in your sector, in your space, you as a founder, you as an aspiring founder, think about these personal traits that you have. Think about your, the things, how you show up, and make sure that you're taking care of your suppliers, your vendors, your contractors. We'll talk about employees and about HR in the next live stream, but for today, I'm specifically addressing that ecosystem that you work within. So with that in mind, reflect on the last period, the last year. How was your working relationship with these suppliers? Was it combative or was it cooperative? Are you happy with the performance, the price? Was there any reciprocity in terms of leads, with these partners? Also, think about the vendors you're using. Did you like some of these vendors? The chemistry was there, the pricing was there, the level of service was there. Or do you want to keep them? You want to change them? So think through, go through all the folks that you've worked with, and you still need their services going forward. As you prepare, have those questions in mind, and then think about, as you prepare for next year, how can you improve that relationship with these partners? As I said earlier, open line of communications. You can do like an annual review. I would say do it more frequently. The more level of interaction you have with a supplier, the more of this is needed, because things will come up, issues will come up. They're behind on delivery, they're overcharging, they're not responsive, whatever the case might be. So have maybe semi-annual review with them, go visit them, have lunch with them, have them come over, and also send a survey. Ask them, what is it? How can I help you better? And then set the right expectations. Also look at some of the partners, some of the vendors you have. You might have some informal agreements. Maybe it's a handshake, and that's okay. I would say if you're going to engage more with these vendors, and if it's a key aspect of the business, you probably want to do a formal contract, put that in place, and then agree on the scope, agree on the resolution time, responsiveness, on pricing. Again, all the things we mentioned earlier around contracts. So that's important, moving from informal contracts or informal agreements to contracts. And then of these vendors, as I said, like, do you want to be let go of some for whatever reason? Search for others. It could be not as, maybe not just that they were not performing well. It could be that their expertise now doesn't match what you need. I mean, maybe you've grown, and the level of experience you have, the level of sophistication, and what you need from them is not something that they have. So again, be very, very open, be very candid, be very nice. Make sure you pay them. Maybe again, depending, I know cash is tight sometimes. Maybe just end of year thank you note, Amazon card, whatever, gift basket, but show your appreciation for what they've done for you. So I think it's important, as we come toward, as we come to the end of this live stream, in working with people, when it comes to providing feedback, and when it comes to make sure expectations are clear, a quote that I recently heard from Brené Brown, I think her, trying to remember, Dare to Lead, that's the name of the book, the audio book I was listening to. Brené said, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And what she is referring to is, be clear in your expectations and be clear in your feedback. A lot of times when we have issues, whether it's employees or business partners or with suppliers and vendors, we're very nice. We don't want to hurt their feelings. We're not sure how to say it. It's a difficult situation. So we don't communicate our expectations. We don't communicate our feedback. And that will make, because it's difficult, it's awkward, I'm not used to it, that's actually unkind. So be kind and be clear, and then share and ask them also for feedback. So it's a two-way street. So it's not, you're just sort of, going really hard and heavy on them. You're also asking them to give you feedback. So find ways to offer that feedback in a professional manner. So before we wrap up, let's see if we have a question here. I believe we have one last question. Do you normally deal with more vendors if you have a physical office? Do you normally deal with more vendors if you have a physical office? I mean, you'll have at least one more vendor. You'll have your landlord if you're renting, or if you're using like a WeWork. I don't know if having a physical office requires more vendors. I'm not very clear on the question, but I would say having more vendors. I mean, yes. So depending on the level of service, depending on the service you offer, it could be that you need maybe office supplies. Like when we had a small office initially, and cash was very tight, but we wanted to do something different and special. So early on, this is before it was hip. We used to have snacks, and we used to do like bring in lunch and all of that. So this is before Uber Eats and all of that. We used to go out and buy lunch and bring it and have it. There was a small team, and we did that. So I mean, I don't know if you'll have more vendors if you have a physical office, unless I'm missing the question. But it's really more vendors, more contractors, and more suppliers. It's going to be I think a factor of as you're growing, as you're scaling, you're going to need more technology. You're going to need more systems. You're going to need more tools and suppliers in general. But if you have maybe provide more specifics, I'll be more than happy to follow up. So yeah, definitely leave us a comment if this is not very clear. So to wrap up for today, we covered reflecting and preparing. That's the simplified approach. We're not talking about OKRs or the noise analysis or so many of them out there. They're good. I think they're good when you grow and you have maybe staff, larger team of staff. But initially, use this simplified approach of reflecting and preparing. Last week we covered revenue, risk, and strengths and weaknesses, and today we covered the market, your audience, and leads. We covered clients and service delivery, and then we covered vendors, suppliers, and partners. So for next week, the next live stream, 2 weeks from now, we will wrap up our planning series, planning for 2024, reflecting on last year, and we'll be covering back office. So that is legal, accounting, HR, insurance, operations, tech, admin, all that good stuff. And then we'll cover funding in terms of lenders and investors. And 3, the most important of all of the above is you, the entrepreneur, and if you have business partners as well. So hope you found this video useful, this live stream useful. Would love to hear from you. Subscribe to the channel, like and share this video. And if you haven't done so yet, go to startupwithFares.com. Again, this is spelled Feras, and look for the Daily Advisor, our newsletter that is dedicated to founders and those who want to build and start 7 or 8-figure businesses in services and consulting. It has frameworks, strategies, practical tips. So go ahead and subscribe on the website, and also subscribe to the channel. And if we don't connect, wish you happy holidays and a happy new year, and see you next time.